Hi there, Dr. Barengrutter here. In this video, I'm going to show you a different way to approach skeletal expansion. In the past, I have created a video that shows how to design a case or set up a case for the fabrication of a MSC appliance. And this one, we're going to talk about a U-Penn appliance, which is an acrylic-based expander onto implant on either side. And so I'd like to show you sort of an example. This is just a simple Google search, and you can see this is the kind of thing we're talking about. Is basically a piece of acrylic with a couple of implants. I wish this was zoomed in a little better. Maybe here we go. A couple of implants to engage the palate and an acrylic expander. And this is after expansion. You can see the diastema that's been created. So yeah, there's various examples. If you just look at U-Penn, that's the University of Penn. They're sort of the ones that sort of, from my understanding, they created this or originated this approach. So anyway, I'm just going to show you how I would set up for a case like this as someone who is still becoming more and more comfortable with it, but also I'm obviously, if you've watched my videos, I'm a fan of guided surgery. So the ability to plan where these implants are going to be and then tell my lab how to make the appliance so that it's going to be an easy insert. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into surgical guide software, and I'm going to tell it I'm going to do import CT scan. If we do the 1 or 2, it's what we call the wizard workflow, and it's very simplified. I like to use the advanced mode, so I'm going to click on this right here. I'm going to search for my patient's cone beam scan. That's the first thing we need to do. Okay, and it is now loading up. Once it's loaded, we can do a little bit of adjustments to the CT scan, sort of accounting for if the chin was up or down, left or right, turned, rotated. So make sure we don't skip this step. This is, in general, I always recommend when I teach this stuff, don't skip this part. We can move things, account for it. Now, this is a pretty good scan. There's not really much to change. So I'll just go ahead and leave it here. Click OK. And we are loaded. So now we're going to tell it to go ahead and bring in the STL model. And here's our model. You can kind of see how constricted it is. May not be terribly obvious, but rest assured it is. And I'm going to click OK. And the software is going to try and align it itself. First, we want to tell it it's a maxilla, and then let the software try to automatically align. If you have a lot of metal restorations and stuff in the mouth, it's going to make it more complicated. But most of these cases, it's going to be pretty accurate because we're talking about orthodontic cases on usually young or whatnot people with a lot of teeth, so it should make that a bit easier. This is just a warning telling us that make sure that it's aligned, because you never want to just trust that the software was perfect. And I use these top 2 windows up here. You can see this green outline down here. Do not rely on this screen. It may look like it's aligned or it may look like it's not. Don't rely on that. Let's look up here. I'm going to click on these little arrows to zoom in the screen, and then I'm going to use my mouse to wheel back and forth, or you can grab this little slider bar, and you can see how well adapted the green line is over the teeth. That's telling us how well it is aligned. Okay, make sure you check the entire mouth. It does not have to be absolutely perfect, but we want it pretty darn close. And it looks pretty good to me. That's a second one. I honestly, at this point, I know it's aligned, but this view as well can be nice, because as we scroll through it, you'll see that it wraps around the teeth right here. And as the teeth disappear, the green lines also disappear. That just tells us that, occlusal gingivally, it's also aligned well. So again, probably didn't need to with this, but that's where you have it. So honestly, from here, we can, I'm gonna show you a couple things that aren't necessarily critical. This yellow line right here is the pan curve, and we can customize that. The software will allow us to sort of move this to where we think the pan should be, and it's changing the rendered pan down below if you look. Now, be aware this is a constricted arch, so you kind of almost have to, well, she's got a crossbite, so you're not going to be able to have it right down the center of the teeth, otherwise the mandible disappears on that side. But anyway, doesn't really matter. You can also grab these little circles to make the focal trough wider. So these little circles right here, and then it just, yeah. Okay. So if I click on this, this one is just showing me the slice. The yellow line where that's visible is what I'm seeing. If I click on this button, it's more like a pan where it's showing me everything between the two outer lines. So now this looks more like your typical pan. Okay, she has retained primary canines, but if we look at this screen right here, zoom in on, or open this up, come into our surfaces panel. If you can't find it, it's up under panels, surfaces. We can turn off the CT scan. We don't really need to see that right now. Okay, and you can see that here are her primary canines. And if we were to get those out, would we have space for her permanent canines? Most likely not. So what we would do is we'd put an open coil spring, whatever, try to create space, and we'd really end up just proclining the anteriors, not really getting much space. So of course, you're watching this video because we're talking about expansion. So I'm not really going to explain why we're doing expansion. Hopefully you all are on the same page with me and the need for it in this case. I did not bring in the lower model. I will go ahead and do that. It's not actually necessary for this workup. Click on mandible, okay. And it's going to try to align to the CT scan. I might not want that. So I'm just going to tell it to align to the model. And so that's her CR. Okay, well, that's not her CR, that's her CO. Probably not CR, she probably has a functional shift. But this is her bite as it is, as it stands. And you can see the cross bite she has. So we're going to try to expand, correct that. And yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so back to this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the surface. I'm going to hide this opposing model because once again, I really don't need that for the purpose of this video. I am going to go into the model editing module once again. Anytime you need it, the panel, they're up here if they're missing. And so now I can go ahead and use my selection brush. Oh, it's the wrong model right now. Do I want to continue? Let's just make sure we're on the right model. Okay, now it's green, just like the green model. We're going to edit the maxillary model. Selection brush. If I press and hold the shift button, I can highlight this. It's sort of what I would call extraneous data that we really don't need. Okay, and that's good. The rest of it's fine. And I'm just going to say cut selected area. And I'll go ahead and highlight all that. Maybe this down here. And you don't have to be picky. I'm more just showing you how to take it to the next level. And we'll highlight all that, and then we'll delete it, and then we'll move forward. So that's all cut. The reason I did that is because now I'm going to go to model manipulation, and I'm going to close this model. Okay, because eventually we're going to want to print this. So I might as well close it now. Close model, press that one button, and we might have to change the parameter. I'm going to see if it crops off the palette or not. And nope, it didn't. Left us a nice thick palatal base area. So when we print this model, it's going to have the palette, which means our lab can still create our appliance. They have everything they need as far as the palette fit. And now we're just going to tell them where the implants are. Okay? All right. Or where the implants need to be. So in a case like this, the reason I like to do guided surgery is because these roots can be quite narrow, quite tightly spaced. And for me, freehanding, trying to miss these, the roots, that makes me a little nervous. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of clinicians out there that are far more skilled than me that can do it, but I would rather just create a guide and let the guide tell me where to go. So the first one I'm going to place is going to be I'm going to place two implants one between the molar and premolar and one between the two premolars. And then the same thing on the other side. So let's start right here. Okay. I'm aiming for right about here. I'm going to come up to, are we on? Make sure we're on advanced module. Okay. Sorry, I lost my view. It zoomed in on the screen. I'm just going to press the F3 button, function 3, or come down here to perspectives. This gives me that screen that I had a minute ago. So anyway, I'm going to add the implant here. Right here is a little implant with a plus sign. Click on that. I need to find the implant I'm going to use. Now, I'm not going to actually use this one necessarily, but it's similar to what I'm going to use. I'm going to be looking for the stern gold more, and then there's various implant sizes that you might use, okay? And so I'm going to plan with the basically the 2.7 occlusal diameter, 1.5 apical diameter by the 10 millimeters. The implants I would actually use most likely in this are the MDL Mini Implants you can find on Shatkin First. Honestly, one of the reasons I like this is because I can just go buy them online and have them sent to me. They have a 2.5 by 10, 11.5, and so on and so forth. They also have a 2.0. So yeah, there's different options there. I'm going to aim for the 2.5, and then if I find that when I'm planning it's going to be too snug, then I will opt to go with a narrower implant. You can find even narrower if you go into TADs and whatnot. So I'll leave that up to you. If you have a different style of implant you want, hopefully you'll still be able to figure out how to augment this whole workflow to your own purposes. So this one mimics it pretty well as far as planning and visualization. So that's the implant I want. I'm going to click OK. And again, I'm aiming right here. Now these implants are going to want to come in vertically, that's what we do with implants typically. But that's okay. I'm going to change the plan myself. And I'm going to tip it from the palate to the buccal. Now I'm noticing right away that I could possibly get an even longer implant in here, but we'll see if it's necessary or not. And actually, I tipped it the wrong direction. I was thinking I was on the other side of the mouth, so no biggie. Tip it and swing it this way now. I am going to try and get the square of the implant to be flush with the tissue. Okay, that's not 100% necessary, but that's what I'm going to aim for. I'm also going to try and keep these as anterior as I can in alignment, simply because, or I want to be able to bring my handpiece in here. So I got to keep that in consideration. And you can see that I'm already quite snug. I'm practically touching these roots, which, some will tell you can get away with, but I certainly want to avoid it if I can. So this is telling me already that I'm probably going to opt for using the 2.0 millimeter implants instead of the 2.9. Still going to be super duper close, but again, my options can be somewhat limited, so I'm going to try to optimize what I can. So in this view right here, one thing I can do is try and go to a little bit more oblique here and then slide up. That'll get me more towards where the roots taper, and then hopefully I can avoid them even more. So that's a little bit better. Okay, so that one is honestly positioned. Don't have to do much there, not do much more now. That said, I am going to change my numbers here potentially. I'm going to click on my guide tube, and in fact, the numbers are exactly what I need them to be. I couldn't remember if I had to change these or not, but these holes are going to be the size of the driver that I'm going to use. That's what's important for you to check. Is I'm going to see if I can find them. MDL. Because basically what I'm really looking for is the driver. So here we go. This driver, what I need to do is I need to make sure that I can match the outside diameter of this portion. That's what's going to be guided. Not the implant itself, but this. The implant's going to slide in here, and so this shaft is what the diameter of this is what I need to match. So get out your digital calipers, which I'm hoping you all have, measure the diameter of this, and then add about 0.1 millimeters or so, depending on your printer and that calibration. But you want some passivity so that you can slide this through the guide. That's going to control the trajectory of your implant. And these numbers are actually already set up for me. So 3.4, I know that I want an offset of 11 and height 4. So yeah, I'm all set there. So I don't have to change anything else there. If I needed to, it would be best to do it now, because now I'm going to duplicate this implant, and any settings I change here are best to set now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'm not going to lock it yet because I want to be able to move the next one. I'm going to right click in this view, duplicate, and I'm going to click right here. or sorry, I'm going to right click, duplicate, and then move how I want to. The more parallel we can keep these implants, the better, but that's not always going to be possible. But again, I'm going to try. So here we go. We've got these two set up. And we are super tight. You can tell that I can't go anterior to the premolar because if I do, I'm touching the impacted canine. So I'm making this video now. One thing I might end up considering, we'll see, is if I actually want to change plans and go with an MAC appliance because I won't have to worry about these closely approximating roots. I'm not sure yet. I'll think about it, but I'm going to follow through with the rest of this video so that I can get this video out there for those that you want to work on cases like this. Because again, the whether or not I actually move forward with this is irrelevant to the creation of this video. So here's those two. They are done. At that point, I can lock these two implants and I can go ahead and create my surgical guide for this side. And that's one of the tricks, is I'm going to create two different surgical guides. I'm going to create one for this side and the other, because creating one is going to be very difficult, or not very, it could be difficult to get in and out. So just making two is just going to be easier for me. Do be aware that when you look at it, you got to make sure that your hand piece is going to, miss the contralateral teeth and whatnot. And I'm quite confident they will, but that's one thing you need to check. So now I'm going to go to the guide panel. I'm going to zoom in on this screen, and I'm going to design my guide. To draw the curve, we click here. Don't worry about this. This is just saying that it doesn't like this. It doesn't like where the spacing is, but that's fine. Do nothing. I've got it covered. And I'm going to draw my guide. I'm holding the shift button while I just draw. And I always, whenever possible, like my guides for whatever surgery to cross the midline. Now we do want to enclose these two. I went way too deep by accident there. We don't need this to be super low. We're going to be going right through the tissue. We're not going to be flapping this back or anything. So we can just sit down and you can come right up underneath these if you want, because it'll automatically ensure that they are supported. Okay, looking good. All right, and our guide is closed. I think the last, these lines aren't quite merged. Just drag it on top of that one, and now it's one solid line. So I'm going to go ahead and create this guide, and then I'm going to recreate it because I'm going to show you something that I want to do a little differently. But first, let's just create a surgical guide. This is, just the essence of a basic surgical guide that's going to house these two implants and allow us to insert the implants, and then take out the guide. The problem is, as you'll see, once you get the implants in, how do you get the guide back out? Because the implants are sticking out of the tissue into the holes that are in the guide, and now you're going to be up a creek without a paddle. Good luck getting the guide out. You might be able to. You might be able to wiggle it off, but you really don't want to be messing with that, is what I would suspect. Okay? So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this, and I'm going to create some windows. The implants are actually outside of the guide tubes, so I only need the windows to line up right below them. So let me go ahead and turn off the implants to hide them for a second. Well, I guess I need them. I want to hide the guide tubes. Add window, just right click on the model. And now I'm going to tip it back a little bit, kind of parallel the implants. Doesn't really matter, but slide it out here a little bit. And then I'm going to scale this down so it's about the same width as the actual head of the implant. Okay. Doesn't have to be perfect, but get it kind of close, because the closer you are, the less you have to over reduce the guide. Okay, because the more you do, the more you're hurting the stability of the guide, or the how well it directs the implants. So there's that one. Duplicate. Okay, so that didn't work. I just right click, duplicate. For whatever reason, it's not wanting to duplicate that. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a new window then. Oh, I know why. Well, I think I know why. Duplicate. Oh, even then it's not working. Okay, right click, add window, and we'll just have to do it again. It's trying to save a little bit of time, but for whatever reason, it didn't want to cooperate. Stuff happens. It's okay. Alright, same deal, and drop it down so it's just the top of the implant sticking out of there, and that's good enough. Are they perfectly parallel? No, but they're fine. Okay, so now let's create a surgical guide again. Make sure the upper model is selected, click create surgical guide, cancel. We have to turn on the guide tubes. Otherwise, it doesn't know where to put the holes. Create surgical guide. It already has the line drawn. So now it's going to create the exact same surgical guide, but it's going to create what we call windows. And those are basically slots cut out from the guide in the areas where those blue or purple boxes are. And so that allows the guide to seat, should allow it to seat passively. Once in a while, the software does that, just changes windows while it's processing. Don't think your software is closed, that just happens. Okay, so now let's turn off the upper arch. Let's hide the implants. And now you can see that it cut it out. Now, I got hasty. I apologize. I got to make sure that the window is sticking out all the way. Show windows. And I got to make sure it sticks all the way into the model. So, duh. But whatever, not a big deal. And honestly, it doesn't even need to be that big this way. So let's do that one more time. And I'll go ahead and let's turn on the model, maxillary model. And let's go ahead. Let's delete this guide because we're not going to need it. Show the implants and click create guide again. And I think I made it actually on the closed model. Not the, that's why the line, I can just, otherwise it's going to make me draw it again. So I'll hit create surgical guide. All right, I paused it right there so you didn't have to wait for me. So here's the guide. Let's turn off the stone models. Let's turn off the implants and look from underneath. Much better. So now I know that when I place the implants through the guide, I will be able to slide the guide back off and not get locked into the implants. Okay? So that's it. You can stop watching now if you'd like, because that's the same thing we're going to do on the other side. I will continue recording and show you what I do, but truth be told, there's not much excitement going to be happening for the rest of the time. Okay? So once again, let me turn this off, and let's go ahead and get out of this view. Let's show our implants, and I'm going to click on, which one do I want to click on? I am going to, first I want to unlock, and so now this one's unlocked. I can right click, click duplicate, and now just grab it and drag it all the way around to the other side. Okay. It's not going to be perfect. We'll have to orient it a little bit. I think I've actually got more space on this side than I did the other between the roots, which is nice. All right. Looking from the front, you can see that the trajectory is about the same, which means I'm going to bypass the occlusal of the opposing side. I can probably go a bit deeper here to get closer to the palatal floor, and and whatnot. Yeah. So, and as I get deeper, I'm also getting where the roots are a little bit narrower as well. Okay, so that's done. And now I just have to do the other implant. So right click, duplicate, and just grab it and drag it up here. Okay, and so let's look. Let's zoom around this. I think it's fine, but we'll go a little bit lower just to ensure it's not going to slide along or deviate as it hits the sinus floor. But everything looks, I mean, we're hugging, we're definitely hugging the uprights. Again, that's why I'm doing guided surgery here. And now let's look at this other one. I didn't really spin around this one. Looks pretty darn good to me. So these two are perfectly parallel. And so now it's just a repeat of what we did on the other side. So let's lock the implants. Guide tubes are showing. We can turn off the other side. We don't want those to mess with what we're doing. Kind of gets jumbled which one's which. You can always add the numbers so they're visible and whatnot, these little numbers right here. So let's, real quick, I do want to look at something first. Yeah, we pretty much nailed the mesial distal orientation. I was wondering if I wanted to angle them a little more mesial, but we paralleled the roots. I don't really think I can change that. So I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to go to guide panel. I'm going to make sure I'm in the right model, stone model. Draw Curve. Let's let's do this. Let's say duplicate. I'm going to change the color just for to be easier on myself. And I'm going to say left implants. That way I can draw my curve. There is no curve now, and that way I still have my other curve still drawn. If I were to, otherwise I would have had to clear it and start over, and then I would never be able to go back if I found a change, something I wanted to do slightly differently. So okay, that's all joined. I'm being picky here, don't have to be that picky. And we're going to go ahead and change that, and we're going to add some windows down here. Let's turn off the guide tubes, don't need to see those. Okay, that's there. Let's hide the, oh, no. Show windows. All right. Sometimes it's nice, it would be nice to be able to hide it so I didn't have to worry about it getting moved inadvertently or hovering over top of, but whatever, that's fine. You don't have to parallel it, but I know that the guide is going to be X millimeters thick, so if I parallel it, just makes it a little bit more, ensures that it's going to cut all the way through. Maybe make it just a little bit wider, which can be a little bit tricky once you've embedded it. So I'm going to bring it out here so I can, and then slide it back in. And then slide it over a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to try again because I'm a glutton for punishment. Let's duplicate. There, it duplicated this time. Don't really know why it wouldn't last time. Must have been something about where I was clicking, or I don't know what, but oh well. Okay, so long as this is, this is this direction as opposed to undercutting this, I know I'm going to have plenty of passivity to get this guide off. So now I can go to guide panel and I can say create surgical guide. Oh, cancel. Guide tubes are not displayed, so it doesn't know where to put the holes in the guide. Create surgical guide, implants and pin. So the other ones that are hidden, it's not going to consider. That's fine. It's just warning me because there were 2 implants I left hidden, and it's saying, well, wait a minute, we're not going to put holes where their implants aren't shown. And for the first time, it was a problem because I didn't have the guide tubes. That second time was not a problem. So let's go ahead and hide that again, hide the implants, and let's look underneath. Here it is. There's our second guide. So now we have 2 guides that will both come off of the implants after they're placed, and we're ready to go. So our surgery is now ready, okay? So the last thing, and I guess I'm hoping some of you are still watching that need to know this last step, because the last step actually is important. Hopefully I'll try to add a note in the video to keep watching, because first of all, let's change this. Right guide, left guide, so that when I export them, I know which ones I'm exporting. And I do want to take, let's turn off all these hints. Those are just the little outlines. I'm going to say that I want this model. I want to show the implants. I'm going to go to implant list. I'm going to turn off the guide tubes. And I need to export this as one model. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to come to edit, file, export data. And I want these implants. I want that model. I do not want this checkbox as separate files. And I'll show you what I mean here. It's going to deduct an export, but we knew that going in. And I'm going to call this the implant. Well, I'm going to put some initials. So that's exported. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Now I'm going to go to export data again, and I'm just going to click on these guides. You could do it with in the guide panel. There's a button that says Save Guide, but I want to get both of these. These 2 I do want separate, so I'm going to hit Export, same folder. Okay. And so now let's go back to this folder and let's see. Here is everything we've exported. First, we have the implant model. Okay? And then we have the 2 guides. So let's take a look at Rayware. The reason it's important is now when we send our model off to the lab for it to be printed, or to make the appliance, the lab can now take this model right here, and they can print it. Not only can they print it, but they can create the appliance so that it seats passively over these. They'll have to block that out, that's fine, but they can seat it passively, and then I can do the pickup in the mouth after the implants are placed. I don't have to hollow anything out. They've already hollowed it out based on where they know I'm going to place my implants. Now, they should leave a little extra room so that there's enough room for whatever material, acrylic, resin cement, or triad, or whatever you're using to catch it. But you'll want to have enough room for some wiggle room, as the implants might not be exactly where we want them here. But this should be quite a bit of information for them to work from. And then they can also, I will personally print the surgical guides. Now, if you're working with a lab that's doing all your printing, that's fine. Let me show you real quickly how I would print these, or how I will. This one right here, I'm going to hold the shift button on my keyboard. I'm going to rock it forward. This one right here, I'm going to hold the keyboard and I'm going to rock it forward. That's a precise 45-degree rock that I just did right there. I'm going to come over to supports, leave it on medium, medium. I'm going to do road rafts, but whatever you want, however you want to do there. Click generate supports. Generate supports. So now I've got both guides supported in the model. Now, we're not going to print both of these the same way because this would be one resin, this would be another. But now you know how to print and everything is good to go. Hopefully, by finishing that, it shows you everything you need to know to get these cases going. A little bit longer video than expected. We're at 36 minutes. Sorry for the long duration, but there might be a minute or so I have to cut out of whatnot. But anyway, the whole process should take about 15 to 20 minutes. With a good, talented lab technician, they could do it all for you if you want, or you can take over control like I like to, and then just send off for the actual fabrication of the appliance. All right, hopefully this video was helpful, and take a look at my channel for other ones and my website at barongruterdds.com, where you'll find all of the videos that I try to keep on about this sort of stuff. Thanks so much. Bye for now.